Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, special edition of the Terrible Podcast. I am Alex Kozora. Alongside me, as always, is Dave Bryan for this Monday, August 2nd version of the podcast, special training camp edition. Dave, Steelers back from their off day. It's officially game week, by the way, Hall of Fame game on Thursday against the Cowboys. And despite that fact, it was as competitive and intense of a practice as I think we've seen so far from training camp. And they were in pads, they were tackling, had goal line sessions, so a really good day of work today.
Yeah, it looked like a nice day out there as well, too. And after the day off and putting the pads back on, and sounded a little bit spirited on top of it. So let's get after it.
Absolutely. So we'll go through the injury report here. And the good news overall is the offensive line is taking some steps forward as a group. Guys who didn't practice or have missed time are beginning to work their way back. Guys who did not practice on Saturday, like B.J. Finney, Trey Turner, they were back full today, so that's obviously a positive sign. Probably the big news of the day, Zach Banner getting back into what I would call almost full work. He was in pads, he went through individual, and he was in most team sessions. He did not participate in the live tackling sessions. Joe Hagues told the first team right tackle there, but Zach Banner almost all the way back, so a very good sign there. I was getting a little nervous about that, to be honest with you. Last week, J.C. Hassenauer also practiced basically in full, was not part of the goal line drill, but other than that, he was full. And Chukwuma Okorafor was not in team, but went through individual work as well. So that's good for him. He's trending in the right direction. Kevin Dotson, though, still doing very little today. He was in pads, but not part of individual, and obviously not part of team, despite one report that said he was not in team. So he's still, I guess, a little ways away.
Any idea what's got Kevin Dotson kind of bogged down here?
None. I really don't know. I mean, he was in pads. He takes mental reps on the side. Tomlin called it that tweak, and so maybe there's some soft tissue thing going on, but he's not working with a Cody White, for example, who does some of the training stuff, the rehab stuff for his soft tissue injury, his hamstring injury. So I really could not tell you.
All right, and who else? Marcus Allen, I think you said sidelined?
Yeah, the other ones not practicing at all today was Eric Ebron, TJ Watt, Stephon Tuitt, Marcus Allen, and Cody White coming back today, who guys that have missed some time. It's running back Jalen Samuels and outside linebacker Cassius Marsh. So good news for both of those guys. I believe during practice, I think Tomlin said Benny Snell left at some point. It must have been early. I don't know if I even saw him really do much in team today, so I don't know exactly what or when the injury or whatever he's dealing with occurred, but hopefully that's minor.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something Benny Snell did during it or if he was even out there at all. It seemed like the line of questioning was, where was Benny Snell today? And I kind of took it as he wasn't out there. Mike Tomlin said he's being looked at. He says, maybe I'll have an update for you when I determine the severity or the lack of severity of it. Right now, we're exploring his status. So keep your
It's a little ominous sound.
Yeah. To determine the severity or the lack of severity of it. So we'll definitely see. And gonna be interesting. Mike Tomlin, I think, is scheduled to meet with the media. Kind of kind of going with the flow of what would normally be a game week. I guess Tomlin Tuesday, back on Tuesday at noon will be his, I think, press conference Eastern time. And I don't know. He obviously isn't obligated to give any sort of injury updates, and also we'll see if he does, and we'll see if he he'll probably tell us he's leaving that proverbial light on for several of the guys. So just keep your fingers crossed that it's not serious with Benny Snell Jr. We don't know even what the nature of the injury is right now.
And I believe you're right. I don't think I saw him at all today. If I saw him, then I would have been able to report that. So, don't think he was out there. So does that mean he's getting looked at? Something else, or what the deal is? We're not sure, but something certainly we'll be looking for tomorrow.
All right. Shall we start on the offensive line, I guess?
Yeah, we'll start with the offensive line. So, again, just good that group was, I think, healthier and closer than where they were the other day. So that's a positive sign. And then just overall, and Tomlin made this point in his post-practice presser, that the offensive line did a better job. They were solid, I thought, in goal line overall. The offense scored on 2 of their 3 running plays, 3 of 5 total on the goal line, and even in some of the run sessions, just a better push up front from that collective group. And so as the group gets healthier and some of those guys return, even though really none of those guys were back in team except for Hassenauer. Banner wasn't in team in terms of the live tackling sessions. No Chooks, no Kevin Dotson, but you did see this offensive line, which struggled on Saturday, had basically no run lanes opening up for the running backs. I think did a much better job at the point of attack today.
And I think that's kind of what Mike Tomlin did indeed highlight, and saying you get a good push and get your varsity running back to the line of scrimmage, then it's up to him to do the rest. Then and I don't have that exact quote in front of me here. I wish I did, but in other words, it did sound like it was a more positive day. What would you say? It's probably been the best day of the offensive line so far in the practices that you've seen?
Honestly, probably. I mean, it's always tough to evaluate day by day. Everything's so jumbled up right now, but I think so. It was night and day from Saturday. I mean, Saturday was their worst day, and today was probably one of their better days, if not their best day.
And did our buddy LeGlue get any snaps in there?
Yeah, second team, right guard. Not at center today with Hassenauer back basically full in the goal line drill where Hassenauer was not participating. BJ Finney was working at center, so he got some center snaps there. And then Dan Moore, I thought, had a good day. And maybe not in team. He might have had it in team. I didn't really get a good evaluation of that. But in O-line, D-line, I thought he won almost every single rep, including a couple against Alex Highsmith on some spin moves and some power moves that he was able to rebuff. And I thought his hands and feet were working together well. His base was pretty strong, and he showed a lot more physicality. He just has to stop trying to fight everybody, because he's trying to fight with Hayward again. Some little dust up between them, and I think Kendrick Green got involved as well. So, I mean, this dude's been in like 3 or 4 fights already, in like a handful of practices, 7 or so. So, I understand the aggression, and in some respect, you respect that, and that's good to see. But even Tomlin, I think, is kind of like, let's kind of enough of this.
Yeah, Tomlin kind of addressed that and really didn't want to condone it and really get into that aspect. It sounds like he's pretty much over some of these dust-ups, early on in camp right now here. So somebody asked him about MMA moves or something. I forget what the line of questioning was. There's kind of maybe I misunderstood it there. But, Dan, I guess Kendrick Green was in with him on that, or no?
Yeah, it happened so fast. It's hard to process exactly, what occurred. And I get my head in my notes pretty quickly. But Moore and Hayward got, into a skirmish, and I think Green was trying to be held back, and he looked pretty pissed off. So, I mean, again, it's camp. I mean, those things happen. You want to make sure no one's throwing punches, and I don't believe any punches were thrown. Just kind of some pushing and shoving and all that kind of, stuff. But this has happened a lot with Dan Moore. So I think he's made his point. He won't back down. Noted. Let's get back to football.
All right.
Let's go back to quarterback now. Ben practicing today, and I didn't know for sure what he was going to do, because today, from a practice standpoint, really should have been an off day for him, but because I guess yesterday was an actual off day, he was practicing in full and had his deepest completion of camp so far. Ended up being a 56-yard touchdown to Juju, probably about 20, 25 air yards. It wasn't 56-yard, in terms of it being thrown in the air, but hit Juju over the middle to beat Joe Hayden for a long play. So that is, so far for Ben, the biggest play of his camp.
Was that, I saw what, I think somebody tweeted out something about Juju. Was that the one with Juju on the outside, or was Juju in the slot on that?
No, this was the outside one.
Okay. All right. So he is getting an occasional rep or so outside there, huh?
I mean, it's up to this point, it's been pretty much the same, but he was lined up as the X receiver on that play, and we'll talk about that with the receiver group here in a second. And so I'm sure he's going to be now telling Matt Canada, line me up on the outside some more to get results like that. But that was a good play there from Ben and Juju.
All right. Any play action on that or no?
No play action on that. Did hit Derek Watt on play action on a wheel left side. I think it was play action, but it was Watt. I don't know. I think it bent through it. That makes sense. 25 yards. And then other quarterback notes. Not a whole lot from Rudolph or Haskins today. They were fine. Nothing too high or low. But Josh Dobbs, on days where Ben is full, 0 reps for Josh Dobbs. And so, again, his opportunity is really limited on days like this.
Yeah, and as we said just recently, they're probably not a big surprise. They're probably going to want to get as long as look as they possibly can of Dwayne Haskins over the course of training camp and on into the preseason here. So, Any positives to report on Mason? Because where we kind of left off is he not too good. Was there any step forward for him?
I don't know about a particular step forward today. I mean, there was nothing as egregious in terms of interceptions. Defense didn't pick off a pass today. There were less plays run in total, and some of that was goal line oriented, so maybe less opportunities. I just, obviously I think Rudolph has had some struggles to start in camp. I think Haskins has done well overall, but I don't want to overreact to that either. I think it's very much in vogue for people to pile on and
they'll take sides.
Really, get after a guy and just, really micromanage and microscope every single mistake or every single play. I hear fans do that, and I understand that. It's not unique to Pittsburgh, but again, there is a body of work there for Rudolph that has to be considered, not just these couple of practices. It's not like he's a rookie taking his first snaps in the NFL.
Right. So we should definitely see all three of those quarterbacks, like we said, Rudolph, Haskins, and Dobbs, you would think Thursday. So going to be interesting to see how each one of them fares there. Under center a little bit more than you've seen in past, or no?
It's tough to gauge. I mean, they're definitely under center quite a bit, but some of that could just be because it's a run session, and so you're naturally going to be under center some more. So I don't have a great way to compare that to past years. It feels like it's more, and obviously we'll watch the games. That'll be our truest answer to that in a real life circumstance. But to short answer that, yes, it feels like under center a little bit more, and definitely more play action.
All right, and running backs. I think really I think you noted that McFarland may have had a couple of drops today. That would have been kind of in the negative column for him for sure.
It was up down day for McFarland. 2 drops and did have a touchdown though, I think in 7 shots. But what I liked about him, they were doing one-on-one running back, linebacker / safety kind of leverage tackling drills, and McFarland really showed that burst of speed that he has. So even when linebackers like UG3 had an angle, he could always, talking about McFarland, could always turn that corner, and so you kind of could see that burst and speed that he has to run away and be that angle buster kind of guy that we saw on his Maryland tape. So just getting to watch that in that particular drill, I think really highlighted the explosiveness that he has.
Yeah, especially that game against Ohio State, right?
Yeah, that was a big 200-plus game. Had like 100 yards after the first 3 carries or something.
Right. They trying to get him out into the passing game a little bit. You notice that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has. I mean, he's caught a decent amount of passes. He's been split out in some of those pony looks they continue to run, so he can be the motion guy. They can throw it to him, and so he's been fairly active as a receiver, him and Balazs. And so his hands look improved, and he's making, had the 2 drops today, and those were bad. But overall, I think he's shown more as a receiver this year than last year. Granted, last year was such a limited sample size, and we didn't get to watch him in camp.
All right, and Najee and Kalen Balazs and Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, Samuels was back. Had 1 or 2 decent runs today. That was about it. Nice to see Harris and Balazs. I think overall succeed on their goal line carries. The only one where they didn't was Harris getting blown up in the backfield by Spillane and Bush. Nothing he could do. And then Derek Watt catching that pass. And then Mike Tomlin talked about maybe the chance of them using a fullback more this year. Probably so, just because if Derek Watt's healthy, he's going to be available more. So naturally, they can probably use him a bit more. But you might see that fullback wheel a little bit this year, Dave.
That wouldn't hurt my feelings to see that, or McFarland, or any of those running backs. The wheel's undefeated, Alex. Listen, I'm the one that wrote up what Mike Tomlin had to say about Watt, and even some of what Watt said about Watt after practice and all like that. And the main takeaway there, you hit on most of it there. We're talking about a Derek Watt that only played 50 offensive snaps in his first season in 2020 with the Steelers. Obviously that hamstring limited him quite a bit there, and only touched the ball, I think, twice all season, both times being in that playoff game against the Browns there. So you would think that, you go back and you remember back to his Chargers tape, and, it wasn't like he was used a lot with the football in his hands, but he did have a handful of touches throughout his 4 seasons with the Chargers there. A couple of, what do you have, like something like 10 pass receptions, 150-something yards, or somewhere around in there. He also pointed to the fact that, I'm familiar. Matt Canada's familiar with me. Obviously, Eddie Faulkner's familiar with him. time they spent at Wisconsin there. He even mentioned Alfredo Roberts being familiar with him, when the two with the Chargers and all like that. So there's a lot of familiarity going around right now with the Steelers coaching staff and one Derek Watt there. I think he was asked about kind of lining up more than just at fullback. Now we did see that a little bit last year in Watt's 50-something snaps. A little bit of H-back, kind of occasional tight end. Obviously, you probably saw a little bit of that today. Is there any possibility that I guess what I'm getting at here is Derek Watt the fullback / third tight end right now? Is there a chance that maybe they won't keep a true third tight end to maybe open up a roster spot?
I still think they'll keep a third tight end because that group, I think, has played well. We talk about Gentry or Rader, but would they have that third tight end active on game day? They may be able to get away with that if Watt can kind of function as that. He won't line up, and he hasn't lined up as an actual inline tight end with his hand on the ground, but he'll be that wing that can kind of come across the formation on counters and split zone type blocks. And so that can be the way he gets used as a little bit more than a true, in the backfield type of fullback. And that's how I've seen him used so far in training camp. So yeah, in terms of him acting in that role on game day, I think that's plausible. I still think they probably keep a third tight end on the 53 though. And
Watt didn't made sure to mention game situations and opponents and schemes and all like that. Well, you could see him play heavier in some games than other games, and that obviously makes a lot of sense there. If you had to, from where you sit right now, had to guess, how many offensive snaps for a guy like Derek Watt in 2021, would you go over or under 100?
Yeah, as you said, it's so tied to game circumstance. I mean, what did he have, 50 last year, you said?
Right around 50-something, yeah.
I think he'll be over 100. I mean, just based on his health and hopefully some more successful running game and, just having a fullback a little bit more under Canada's offense. Yeah, I would go over 100.
Okay, because obviously running, as we talk all the time, running successfully early can sometimes lead to having opportunities to run successful late, especially if you had the lead. So, that would probably be to make the big difference, where a bulk of potential snaps for Derek Watt would probably be in the fourth quarter of some games. That might be the straw, I guess, that either puts them over 100 or under 100, right?
Right. No, I agree. Last note I had with the running back position, just got to give credit to running back coach Eddie Faulkner. Just always new drills every single day. Today he brought out the boxing gloves, and Najee Harris had to hold the football in both hands, and Faulkner was doing uppercuts to the football, just trying to punch that ball out, and Harris had to secure it and did a good job. So Faulkner, I think, keeps things light and mixes up his drills basically daily with that group.
All right. Wide receivers, right?
Yeah, pretty quiet day there. I saw Isaiah McCoy make a nice catch in 7-on-7s on a go ball, his specialty at Kent State. Dropped a second opportunity, I think, on a tougher catch. He had to kind of track over his left shoulder. Again, Juju had that catch on the outside, so that was interesting. Deontay Johnson in the slot on that play, by the way. It was Claypool, Juju outside, and Johnson in the slot. Beyond that, not a whole lot to talk about with that group.
All right, tight ends. Ebron not out there. I think there was a report that Freiermuth had to leave momentarily but came back.
Yeah, I didn't even see that, but if he was out, it wasn't for long. And I thought he looked really good today, just with his physicality, his finish, had a couple of key blocks. One was actually, I should mention with the receiver, a jet run to Chase Claypool that went for 40 yards, and that was McLeod, and Freiermuth especially had the key lead blocks. Freiermuth out in space against Minkah Fitzpatrick and kind of paved the way. And he had another one on a screen to Juju left side, right after Juju's long touchdown, where he just, and this is Freiermuth, absolutely burying Arthur Millette, put him on his back in the ground. And I think occasionally he can get a little over-aggressive and hold. I think he probably would have been called for holding on a play against Killebrew today. But you're seeing some finish and some nasty. And I go back to a couple of days ago, those tight end linebacker drills where the coaching point and the preaching point from Mike Tomlin was finish the play. And I think Freiermuth today did a much better as a blocker, finishing the play.
All right, Rader and Gentry and Baugh.
Yeah, pretty quiet for those guys. I don't know if anyone was even targeted today. Baugh got called for a false start and pulled out of a drill play, so you don't want a false start. That's your consequences, lose the rep, but pretty quiet for those guys today.
Okay, what else do we need to hit on the offensive side of the ball? That got it?
Yeah, I think that's every position group. Defensively, I have more notes on the offense today than I do the defense. Defensive line, nothing particular to talk about. Again, Stephon Tuitt remains out. I did tweet out the photo earlier during practice, and I've said this a couple of times already, but I always like highlighting these guys as stuff that no one really pays attention to. Kind of my thing. Abdullah Anderson just puts in probably as many, if not more, mental reps than any other player on the field. This dude's always taking snaps on the sides during special team sessions whenever he's not actually involved with the group. He's just trying to find extra work against the coach, against the sleds, just trying to work on feet, hand placement, his punch, and just trying to find every little advantage he can because reps are so precious in a very deep defensive line, even with Tuitt out. And when Tuitt comes back, it's going to be even tougher for him to get reps. So kudos to him for working hard and trying to maximize this opportunity.
All right, so he remains a prime candidate, probably to be fringe 53, if not practice squad.
He's outside looking in on the 53. Even practice squad could be tough if they keep, because a lot of guys are going to be right on that bubble. Amondo, Davis, Buggs, Loudermilk, some of those guys will make the 53, but whoever doesn't could become practice squad material. So he's kind of fringe everything because of how deep that group is. And so again, you got to, wire to wire for that group. You got to start well, you got to end low, because if you let up at all, the guy next to you is going to step up.
Is Carlos Davis sticking out at all? He's a guy that I just wish we would hear or get in front of the microphone or somebody ask Tomlin about a little bit more, because quite honestly, just haven't heard a lot about him. Really, since he was drafted and outside of us maybe talking about him for the 60 snaps, whatever he played against Dallas last year, which weren't bad.
Yeah, I've seen him get in the run section a little bit, but it still feels like Isaiah Buggs has been ahead of him as the nose tackle, I think, including in goal line today. So Buggs has run ahead of him, and I think had a good camp overall. Kendrick Green did bury Buggs in one O-line, D-line rep. Buggs couldn't swim, and Green finished the play and drove him to the ground. But, I think the games will be very telling for that group to see how they perform, because it can be tough to watch them live in the middle of all those bodies.
Right. Offensive line and defensive line has to be the toughest for you especially at Heinz Field with that vantage point and all like that. It'd be nice if the Steelers send us some all 22.
They at least they do replay plays on the board though, so that is a little helpful. But in O-line, D-line, you can obviously watch and evaluate that way. But yeah, there are times where you just really can't see who's who and who's doing what.
All right, edge rushers.
Just the linebacker group in general. Don't have anything on the edge rushers. Cassius Marsh returned in full, so that was good news.
Are you feeling better about him as the number 4 now?
Yeah, because he's the number 4 now.
Okay,
he's not the number 3. So I feel a lot better about that just by default. I think he's having a good camp, though, and obviously I'm glad that injury only caused him to miss, I think, one full practice. So that was good news. It's not a whole lot for the edge rushers in general. Let's see. TJ Watt went through individual stuff. He was not even in pads today, so they're still, I guess, being very cautious with him for whatever reason. Off-ball guys, Buddy Johnson had a couple good tackles. I think he showed some decent run defense today. Had a good tackle one-on-one in one of those running back linebacker drills against Trey Edmonds. Had a tackle or two in team as well. And I think more snaps today for Bundage and UG3. Bundage especially because Marcus Allen did not practice.
Devin Bush seemed to be moving around okay?
Yeah, and he was in team, and he was in the live sessions, and he was in goal line. So, he is as 100% as 100% can be. There'll be, occasional days or practices where he's not working fully in team, but that's just probably more a management thing than a real concern. So, he looks, like same old Devin Bush.
You wouldn't expect him to play against Dallas, though, right?
No, I wouldn't, unless they just want to get a snap to kind of check that box. But I don't think there's a need to play him Thursday.
All right, UG3?
I think for him and Bundage in that drill I mentioned earlier, they got to work on, not trying to dive too early or not break down too early. I think Jerry O was kind of working with those guys where maybe they were breaking down too early, then having to dive to try to attack the ball carrier instead of really running your feet through the tackle. So some small things there, but both guys are athletic, talking about Bundage and UG3, and UG3 looks healthy. Hopefully he stays that way.
All right. Cornerbacks. No James Pierre interception today. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, the streak has ended. Pretty quiet day for the passing game.
Justin Lane had a breakup or something, right? Better practice for Justin Lane today?
Yeah, we're getting some positive stuff on Lane. Maybe he feels the heat a little bit. Had a breakup on Anthony Johnson in 7 shots, so that's back-to-back days where he's broken up a pass, which, is not as good a performance as Pierre and some other guys, but I was happy to see it. Some positive plays for him making plays on the football.
All right. What about that slot battle?
Today, Millette was the first team slot corner. Again, they rotate, so you don't read too much into who's running first team on a particular day because they are just flipping every single day so far. I think it's a close battle, but again, the monkey wrench into that is it could be Millette, it could be Brooks, it could be Sutton if Pierre becomes the right corner nickel. So there's a million different ways this thing could still go.
All right, and safety. Mike Tomlin talked about Terrell Edmonds having the off-season surgery and how they kind of protect him during the contact portion of practices. And I would guess that means more, a little bit more time for a guy like Miles Killebrew, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering about that today because I think even in goal line, and I've kind of seen it throughout camp a little bit, but something you can't talk about everything. But there were times where the pairing was Killebrew and Fitzpatrick, and I was wondering why isn't Edmonds out there? I guess that's why. And that probably didn't say what the injury was, but that's shoulder, right? Edmonds had a shoulder issue late last season, I believe.
I think that's what it is, and he mentioned about having off-season surgery and how they've been protecting him.
Right. So because I think Edmonds got hurt week 14, week 15 last year. I think Colbert had referenced that, or someone did at some point, and kind of played through it the rest of the way, and then I guess had surgery after the year.
Another interesting quote from Minka after practice, talking about, we're going to see him move around more, and if that's something that he wants to do, he says, "Nope, I'm only playing free safety right now." And was asked, if he has any desire to kind of change his role, and he says, "No, I'm cool with what I'm doing right now." Have you seen him do more than just, pretty much do what he's been doing the last few seasons?
No, he's been basically playing free safety, and I mean, it's hard to argue with the results. 2-time All-Pros his last 2 seasons. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I think was his quote in the offseason. And then also when you have some younger guys around him, and, a Pierre, for example, or a Brooks, or a new guy like Millette, if those guys can't move, then Mink is not going to be able to move. And so hopefully that versatility will increase over time, and I imagine that it will, but especially early, you're just trying to get guys to learn their spots and get comfortable in one spot, so that's going to make Minka a little more static, and that's fine for right now.
All right, Norwood?
I saw him, I think, for a run tackle today, but again, just not – I mean, it was a more run-focused day because of the live tackling sessions, because of the goal line drill and those kinds of things. So, again, Juju had the big play in the passing game. Derek Quad had the reception on the wheel. But to me, it was more run-oriented day. Tomorrow is probably going to be a lot lighter practice. I doubt they're going to be in pads, probably be in shells, no contact. So maybe you see the passing game emphasized a bit more.
All right, the kind of the bottom end of the draft picks there, past Buddy Johnson. That would be guys like Roche, Norwood, Loudermilk, obviously Presley Harvin the third. Barring something happen, you probably don't see Norwood cracking. Do you see Norwood cracking the 53 from where you sit right now?
I think he could, especially if Brooks is going to be considered a corner. Again, a lot's going to come down to special teams value and performance. If it's not Norwood, then is it going to be an outside guy? I'm not sure who on the roster right now could overtake him. I guess you could argue Lamont Wade, but I think Norwood's got the edge over Wade right now.
Okay, Roche?
I think he's outside looking in right now. He's still running third team behind, Ingram and Highsmith and Jones and Cassius Marsh. And so I thought today was pretty quiet for Roche. He didn't have too much success going against Dan Moore, primarily an O-line, D-line. So I think he's probably, as we sit here today, and a lot's going to change, but practice squad guy.
All right. What about Loudermilk? Where's your bubble thoughts on him right now?
I think he's right on it. I mean, I think you could argue he's inside looking in or right on the fringe. I don't think those things have been settled yet. Now, part of that's just my inability to always see those guys up close and personal. I think his camp's been fine. I'm not trying to knock the guy, but I think there's just a long ways to go because of how deep that group is.
All right. Specialist, anything to report there?
They didn't really do much of anything today. Today was focused on some kick coverage stuff. In the kick return line, my notes are somewhere else, but the kick return line was Sexton, McCoy, Wade, and someone else who I can't remember right now. So I think we'll see probably Sexton, McCoy, probably return some kicks in the second half of this Cowboys game.
And I'm guessing we're going to see a lot of Sloman and Harvin as far as the kicking game for the Steelers on Thursday, right? You would be pretty shocked if Boswell is out there.
Would not play Boswell. I would have Barry punt. Someone get the first half, someone get the second half, but I would not play Boswell at all.
Right, and predictions for the return line. Yeah, Sexton maybe going to get a shot at it. McLeod, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Ray probably will get maybe the opening kick or something, but kind of know what he can do at this point. So yeah, Sexton, McCoy, kick returners, punt returners, McFarland. You might see McFarland back there, and maybe I have to look at my notes. Maybe a Sexton as well, but we'll see how things go. How many opportunities they get is another story. It might be all touchbacks. It might be a punting kind of game. You know how Hall of Fame game can be that first one. So we'll see what their chances even are.
All right, you care to pick up maybe a winner or a loser today, or no?
That's a good question. I mean, nothing too strong in either direction. I thought Fryermuth had a good day for that aggressiveness with his blocks. Dan Moore, I saw some improvement there.
He using his hand. Is his hands really that like you had asked me not too long ago was one of the things that stuck out the most about Dan Moore and his college tape, and I said his hand usage. Is that? Would you still agree with that? Is anything? What else has stuck out with him? And have you seen him use his hands well?
Yeah, well, I thought today was probably from what I saw, and that can vary day to day just based on what I'm able to see and pay attention to, but I thought he used his hands really well today in terms of knocking hands down and his punch and having a strong base and anchor. And, of course, you want to be naturally strong to, anchor and be able to hold your ground, but you could have good hand use and a good punch. And I thought I saw that today really well from Dan Moore, at least in O-line, D-line. So an encouraging day and a lot of reps too. First team reps. I mean, this guy's playing a lot because Chooks really has done very little so far. So he's definitely getting the opportunity to get a lot of exposure and just get a lot more reps than I anticipated heading into camp.
Anything stick out in 7 shots?
Offense won 4-3. Haskins had a boot to the right. He ran over the goal line for the last play of the tiebreaker. I always hate when quarterbacks run the ball in 7 shots because you can't touch him, and it feels like it's kind of cheating a little bit. Lane had the breakup. I think McFarland had a touchdown, but it was 4-3 for the offense today.
All right. Well, I guess that's about got us wrapped up, huh?
Yeah, I want to thank our sponsor, Touring Plans. If you're planning a trip to Disney, be sure to follow those fine folks, and Len Testa in particular. Appreciate him working with us and being a great, faithful, and loyal sponsor of our training camp coverage. And again, if you haven't checked out the normal edition of the Terrible Podcast today, check it out. And alongside this one, once you're done listening to our show here, we got to talk with Alan Fanico, which was a whole lot of fun. And,
what a blast that was, huh?
That was really cool. And hopefully, I'm not going to say the name yet, but hopefully we'll have another special guest for Wednesday's show.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that as well, too. Alex, practice same time on Tuesday, right?
Yes.
All right, and then obviously Mike Tomlin speaking to the media around noon, so a lot to cover there on SteelersDepot.com. And Alex and I will be back tomorrow evening with a wrap up of the Tuesday training camp practice out at Heinz Field, and hopefully everybody's going to SteelersDepot.com and reading the fantastic daily diaries that Alex is putting up there as well too. Alex, fantastic job. Always learn something, man. Always learn something from you during these things. So I appreciate it. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And until Tuesday night, as always, thanks for listening to this special edition of the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.